Hey guys, Palsteron here, and today let's talk about how you can get your Transfigured gems on day one. There's obviously no magical recipe for that, but there are a lot of small things you can do to make your life a lot easier. Unfortunately, GGG has decided to put a lot of power in certain gems that you can't really access anymore from level 1 or even level 32. Gone are the days where you can just jump in a new league and play your skill early on. A lot of the power has been shifted, and a lot of normal skills feel like placeholders. Now, whether it's Volcanic Fissure of Snaking or it's stuff like Smite of Divine Judgment or Vortex of Projection, we're going to go over it, how you can get them as early as possible. So baseline, you get your Transfigured gems from Lab, which is the place where you also get your Ascendancies. It's basically this font right here at the end where you basically put your gem in and you get different results. We're going to talk all about it. First, we have to talk about your gem color because this will determine how hard it will be for you to get your gem. And there's a clear unevenness. There are 32 red gems currently in the game, which makes it a lot easier for you. Meanwhile, there are almost double green and blue gems. And the reason this is important is because of the rewards that will be at the font at the end. And the most common one is transform a skill gem to be a random Transfigured gem of the same color. So while, yes, you do have a 1 in 11 chance to get the red gem that you want, for green and blue gems, it's more like 1 in 22 to 1 in 25. However, that depends on what lab you're doing, because on normal, you can only get this random color. On Cruel, you can get it and some other random options that don't really matter, so do not farm Cruel. But on Merciless, some other options open up. Namely, this one. Transform a non-transfigured skill gem to be a random transfigured version. So you put in a Volcanic Fissure, you get a Volcanic Fissure of Snaking. However, don't be fooled because some skills actually have 2 transfigured versions. For example, Lightning Tendies has Eccentricity and Escalation right here. So if you get that, it's still only a 50-50. Now, how often do you actually get this option in Merc Lab? From my personal experience and some people I talk to, it's around 1 in 8 to 1 in 12. So on top of the random chance, you're also getting that one on top. Now, if you're actually willing to wait until Eternal Lab, you will be rewarded with 2 font uses. And also, as I've heard at least, this option gets a lot more common. So you're going to get more of the transfigured versions that you want. But not only will you need a Divine Offering, you will also have to be strong enough to do this. So unless you're leveling something like, for example, Explosive Concoction, which can hold its own up to Uber Lab, you're going to have a bad time and you're going to have to delay your main skill probably until level 85 or so. But in this video, I'll go over Normal Lab and Merc Lab and how those are played and maybe a few small tips if you're on trade. Now, if you're planning to spend some time in Lab, it's definitely recommended to go to PoE Lab, which is run by Suit Size Small. They've been basically updating daily lab layouts for as long as I know. Now, Normal Lab is used very rarely. It's basically the first time you get your Ascendancy at level around about 30 to 34, whatever you're. Simply for the reason that it's just too goddamn random. You don't have the option to just straight up transform a skill gem. The only thing you have is a random color, which once again, as we talked about, if you are not a red gem, there's just too many gems in the pool to ever realistically get your gem, unless you're willing to be there for like multiple hours. And I know people say, well, the Normal Lab is significantly faster than Merc Lab, but so are, like, you're just slower, right? Let's be honest. Your shield charge might not even be free linked at that point, or maybe it is free linked and your faster attack is like, I don't know, level 6, level 7. You don't have a suffix on movement speed on your utility flasks yet, right? You have shitty boots. So I think it kind of evens out and I wouldn't really recommend it. But if you're playing something like Volcanic Fissure of Snaking or the Smite gem rep and you have a red gem that you need, it's like a 1 in 11. I think it is doable. However, I think this is mostly for people who want to play their skill as early as possible, which fair enough. I'm actually also like that, but even I have my pain tolerance and I would not do that personally on blue and green gems. I put down 3 different strats here that I use on different builds. They're not really different. It's nothing special. You'll understand it immediately. They're just slightly different. The first one is the brute forcing, where you basically just spam transform a skill to be a random transfigured gem of another color, which you always get. You just spam that whenever it's up and wait until you get the one where you get the exact gem you get. So it's basically like, I don't know, maybe you get lucky, but at some point you'll get the one you need. This one's actually very strong because you'll get random gems that other people want. And here it's very important to know the meta and kind of know what other people want. So in the selection, you can make the right choices and you just spam, spam, spam. And at the end, you're probably never going to hit, right, on the random ones. But let's say you have like 8 gems that sell for like 1 to 10 chaos or whatever, and you get a little bit of money on the side, right? You get into maps and you actually have decent gear, maybe a 5 link or whatever. And at some point, you're going to hit. The second strat I use on builds that really want quality on some of their gems ever since the quality rework. Some main skills, but even stuff like Mark on Hit or Sniper's Mark, I mean, it is a pretty big deal, and you're probably not going to flip your gems, and you're probably not going to spend GCPs, right? So you're also getting some early farm, but this depends on how good the quality on your gems is. In that case, people simply use the quality on gem option, and in Merc Lab, you can see right here, you actually get 4 to 15% quality, and yeah, a lot of people do that. I've seen people have almost all 20 quality gems when they get into maps, and that's quite good. Usually people get the quality later, but might as well, right? You're going to save stuff later, and you're going to have a little bit of a power push, even on your supports, right? You get like 10% increased damage there, 10% there. That's actually a pretty big deal early. But the strat that I would recommend to most people, and that most people do, is like a mix of the two on above. It's if you get 10 or 15 quality gem, which is the high roll here, which is pretty rare, you use the quality, and otherwise you just use the random transform gem. And once again, you wait until you get the transformation that you actually want. This will usually give you a good mixture of like 2 to 3 gems where you get quality on, plus a little bit of gems that you can sell for a little bit of chaos, and then at the end, the gem that you want. Now, the most efficient way to get your gem, though, obviously buying it. If you're in trade and you're early, especially if you're not playing a meta skill, that is absolutely no reason, in my opinion, to ever engage with lab whatsoever. There's a few rules to this. Never do lab if you're playing an off-meta skill personally. Just wait until you drop a chaos or 2. People are going to brick into your gem. Now, there has been situations where there's actually none on the market because it's always the worst option, so they never take it. That is possible, so I don't know, but I've heard of a lot of people who just buy their gem for 1 chaos on day 1. Also, the early bird catches the worm. Trust me, even meta gems, if you're really early, you can snag sometimes for between 3 and 6 chaos. If you get a lucky drop early, or you get like a stack of chaos orbs from some weird league mechanic, it obviously depends on the league, or you find like a unique that sells for 10C. The earlier, the better. Usually they start out very low because people are still leveling, and then they shoot up quite for a while, and then, I don't know, like round about day 3, day 4, they kind of taper off. Or depending on what happens to the meta, some of the Leaguestart skills phase out and some of the endgame skills phase in. The easiest way to buy your gem, if you need to though, is to sell your bricks, right? Once again, you have the option of 3 gems. You just take the one that you think is worth the most, or you check the market and you sell that, and at some point you can afford the gem that you want. With this, I've never had a situation where I had to farm lab for more than 3 to 4 times. Personally. The other thing you can do that a lot of racers will do, and a lot of people who have strong early game builds and they can transition later, is start mapping and just buy it once you drop the currency. This has obvious advantages, but not every build and not every archetype, not every class can do that, so you have to feel that out yourself or test it before Leaguestart. In case you're not really too much aware of the meta, you can either look at the main skills right here and just see what people are playing, or you can simply go to economy and then scroll down to, where was it again? Skill gems right here, and you will see what's worth. Obviously, it's going to look completely different on day 1. Some tips and tricks here at the end. The first one is the gems you transform actually keep their level and the quality, which is interesting because of the second fact, which is that you can actually cancel out of the menu. There's a small X up top there, and this way you can, just not choose any option. This is good to know if you have, for example, a gem that's already leveled and it has quality and you want to exactly transform it into something else. You obviously don't want to choose something else. I personally wouldn't really recommend doing this simply because you're going to miss out on all the money from the bricks that you're going to get. Also important, while you're at the font, there is a stash right there, but there is no gem vendor. So always have one of the gems you want with you. So if you're playing Volcanic Fissure of Snaking, have a Volcanic Fissure in your inventory ready if you get lucky and you get that exact transformation. Also, have enough HP. It can be quite frustrating if every 3rd lab you do, you're actually going to die. So have around about 2.5k HP, or maybe a little bit of armor, evasion, whatever you can get by. Usually what I do is right before Exile, if I know I'm actually going to farm Merc Lab, I will take a few life notes before, even if I have to spec out of them a little bit later, just to make it more comfy. And then another thing that's really strong is the Rizlafa Pantheon, which gives you access to more life flasks. So there's obviously traps in the Labyrinth, and they're going to, well, test your recovery. If you're mind over matter, you're actually going to be very strong because of the way it's kind of being separated. Otherwise, yeah, just bring like 2-3 life flask and also make sure you have your quicksilvers. And once again, if you're running a green or blue gem, and yeah, don't do the Gamba in normal app, in my opinion. Have a strat until level 68, unless you are absolutely willing to, I don't know, run the numbers, like roll the dice until forever. But that's about all I got. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. And since I still don't have a slogan, see you next time.